The link label control gives you the ability to add hyperlink text, essentially, to a Windows form. You take a label and some or all of the text can be clicked, and then you can run code based on that. And you'll know that the link label is clicked because clicking on it fires the link clicked event. You have some control over how the link label appears. You can use the link visited property to control whether or not the color changes after the link's been clicked. The link color and visited link color properties can be used to determine what color the link label will have before and after the user clicks on it. And you can use the link area property to have all of the text be the link or only some of it. The numeric up-down control is used to display and enter numeric values. So it consists of a text box and up or down arrows. And as you click on the up arrow, you're incrementing the number in the text box, and when you click the down arrow, you're decrementing the number in the text box. The value property tells you the number that's displayed in the control, and that's read and write. You can use the minimum and maximum properties to control the lowest and largest values that can be entered in the control. The increment property lets you control how much the value changes when the arrows are selected. So if you set this to 10, clicking on the up arrow increases the value in the text box by 10. And then the value changed event occurs when the value is changed. So let's see a demo of using the link label and the numeric up-down control on a form. I've got the sample application for this section running, and I'll click link label and numeric up-down controls to bring up that form. At the top I have two examples of a link label. In the first, the entire text is the link. So when I hover over this, the cursor changes, and when I click anywhere in here, then I'm going to call the code that asks me if I want to save a file. In the second example, I want only the word here to be the link. So when I click that, again, I'm prompted to save the file. And I also have a numeric up-down control here, which starts at 2000, so I can specify how big a house I want. Defaults to 2,000 square feet. And every time I click the up or down arrow, I change that value by 100. And I can also do some validation, so if I scroll past 2500, then I'm going to get a message. And then in the bottom half of the form, I have radio buttons to give me three choices. How big a house do I want? If I select small, then this numeric up-down control goes to 1,000, medium-sized, or large. I can control the starting point for each of these. Well, let's go look at the form and the code to do this. So here's the first link label, save file link label 1. It is a link label. The text is click here to save, and I haven't changed any of the other properties. Now if I double click on this, here's the code that runs in the link clicked event. So when I click on this, I'm just going to display the confirm dialog form. In this second link label, I'm using the link area property to control what part of the label is the actual link. So the 6th character should start the link label, and that should be 4 long. I've set the start to 6, which will actually be the 7th character because it's a 0 index. So I want the 7th character, which is the H, and then I want 4 characters, which is the H-E-R-E. And that way I get the here word to be the actual link. And then that, of course, has a link clicked event, and the same code runs. For the house size numeric up-down, I set the value to true. I specified that I want the thousands separated by a comma or a period, depending on your culture. I've set the increment to 100, the minimum to 1,000, and the maximum to 5,000. And as I'm clicking, the value changed event will trigger. And if the value is now greater than 2,500, then I show the message box that a house this large will cost you more. And then for each of these buttons, when I select one of those, that runs the checked changed event, and I change the minimum, maximum, and value of the numeric up-down. So a small house is between 1,000 and 1,999 square feet, a medium between 2,000 and 2,999, and a large house from 3,000 to 5,000. So the link label and the numeric up-down control, fairly straightforward controls, very easy to use, but give you some nice UI benefits. The picture box control is used to display graphics on a form. And there are several graphics formats that are supported: bitmap, JPEG, GIF, icon, and metafile. So you'll use the image property to determine which image you want to display in the picture box control, and then you can set the size mode property to control how the image is displayed. And the reason you'll want to do this is because typically your image will not necessarily be the same size as the picture box control. Well, if you set size mode to normal, then the picture box will crop the image if it's larger. If you set it to center image, the image will be centered. If you set size mode to stretch image, then the picture box will resize the image so that it fits. If you set size mode to zoom, the image is resized, and also the height and size ratio is maintained. And finally, if you set it to auto size, the picture box is resized to display the image using its original size. So in this case, the picture box will resize to display the image. At runtime, you have some control over the image. You can actually load an image or a different image into a picture box at runtime. So you'll set the image property to the image you want displayed, and then you'll call the load method, passing that image as a parameter. And that will load a different image into the picture box. You can, if necessary, load the image asynchronously. You'll do this if it's a large image or if you're getting it over the network or over the web. You can set the set wait on load property to false, which tells your code not to wait while this is being loaded. Then you'll use the load async method to load the image asynchronously. You can use the load progress changed event to monitor the progress. And then the load completed event occurs when the image is finished loading. Now, if you're going to monitor the progress, you're going to want to perhaps display to the user where in the process we are. And for that, we can use the progress bar control. Progress bar control you'll use to update the progress of a long-running action. There's 3 ways to do this. The first way is by incrementing the value property of the progress bar. You can also use the increment method, which increases the value property by an amount that you specify. And the third way is to use the step property and the perform step method together. The step property controls how often the progress bar is updated, and perform step will change the value by the amount that's in step. So let's go see a demo of how we can use the picture box and the progress bar control in a form. I have our sample form up, and I'm going to click Picture Box and Progress Bar Controls. And in the upper left, I have an image which displays the AppDev logo, and beneath that, a progress bar. And then in the lower right, I have 2 buttons and 2 progress bars. Let's look at the picture box first. It right now has this AppDev image. I want to change that image, and I'm going to do that by clicking the Image Property button, and the image changes. Let's go see why. Well, when I click Image Property, I'm going to run this code. I'm going to set the image property of the picture box to properties.resources.sunset. Now, this project has resources, and one of those resources is this sunset.jpg picture. So I can just set the image property of the picture box to that picture, and it changes. When I click Load Method, I want to go get a picture from the AppDev website, bring it down, and then use that as the image in the picture box. And I can accomplish that by calling the load method. And I pass as a parameter the picture I want to go get. So I'll click Load Method. The image is retrieved and displayed in the picture box. Well, what if it's going to take a little bit longer to get the image? In that case, I can use the Load Async method. So when I click this third button, Load Async Method, the first thing I'm going to do is set the WaitOnLoad property of the picture box to false, and then call the Load Async method and pass the image I want to go retrieve. Now because I'm doing this asynchronously, the Load Progress Changed event will be called periodically, and that takes as a second argument an instance of the Progress Changed Event Args class. And the progress percentage property of that class tells me what percentage through the process we are. And so every time that event is called, I'm going to display we're that far through the process, and then I'm going to set the value property of the progress bar to that. And then when I click this, we'll go get that property, and if it had taken longer, we would have seen that progress bar go a little bit more slowly, but if you try it on your computer, it'll probably take longer. Let's see another example of how we can use progress bars to show us the process of long-running processes. I'm going to generate some random numbers. Where is that? Here it is. And so I'm going to set the initial value of this progress bar to 0, the maximum at 10,000, and then I'm going to step 100 at a time. Then I'm going to generate 10,000 random numbers. And on every 100 of them, I'm going to issue the perform step method, which says increment the value property of that progress bar by 100. And so when I do that, wow, that was a little fast. Let's do something that takes a little bit longer. Let's set this to 1,000,000. So let's generate 1,000,000 random numbers and step by 100. Oh, that's a little better. Okay. So we can control how often that gets updated and by how much it gets updated by setting the step property, or in this example, just using a bigger number. And then the second example is backup favorites. When we click that, we're going to back up the contents of the favorites folder. Well, where's the favorites folder? Well, we can find out. System.environment.specialfolder.favorites represents that folder, and then we can use system.environment.getFolderPath to find out which folder that's in. We then pass that to directory info, which is in the system.io namespace, and refers to a folder on the hard drive. So my docs.dir represents the favorites folder. Well, that directory or folder has a getFiles method, which will return a list of all of the files. So I'm then going to count through that and set the maximum property of the progress bar to the number of files. Then, if necessary, create the directory /backup of favorites. If that already exists, then the create directory method doesn't do anything. And then for each file in that folder, we're going to make a copy of it and increment the progress bar by 1. So if there are 100 files, we'll increment by 1 100 times. Well, in this example, there's only one file. So again, that didn't really prove much, but if you try this on your computer and you have more than one favorite, you'll see a little more progress. So what you've seen in this demo is how we can change the picture displayed in the picture box at runtime, and we can also use the progress bar to show the progress of a long-running process.